Welcome to Know Your Mobile. I'm Basil. This is the Sony Xperia Z. Now, we reviewed the Xperia Z yesterday, but you guys just wanted more detail, more information about how it is living with this gorgeous flagship, so we decided to re-review it for you. The Sony Xperia Z is Sony's latest flagship phone. 5-inch Full HD display, pixel density of 443 ppi, quad-core processor, weatherproof body. It really has got the works, so immediately there's a lot going for this beautiful bit of kit. Starting off with the design, and it is very angular. It looks almost like a Sony Bravia TV, and that's no bad thing. From the Xperia Z T before it, it's definitely much more striking. The Sony Xperia Z packs all the ports underneath flaps, and that is because of the weatherproofing. This might annoy someone who doesn't really want the weatherproofing. For example, in order to open the get to your headphones, you have to open the flap. But if you drop your phone down the toilet or something like that, that is going to prove invaluable and save you a shed load of money. So the Sony Xperia Z ports do include a micro SD card slot to the left. On the right hand side it is a micro SIM port and a micro USB port, Up at the top is the 3.5mm headphone jack. As far as buttons go, on the right hand side is a volume rocker, and there is also a gorgeous power button. Now we're going to zoom in on that for you a little bit, just so that you can really gauge how gorgeous it is. It's got a spiral effect on it, and its positioning is really important. The reason for that is let's refocus there 1 second. Try that once more. There you go. So the reason the positioning of the power button is so important is because it sits where the middle finger is when it's in the left hand, and when it's in the right hand where the thumb is. It's very convenient to access, much more so than with a power button to be placed up top, like a lot of other phones. As far as other elements of the phone go, there's a gold pair of connectors here to the left-hand side. The gold connectors for the dock, which the phone actually ships with. The dock is fantastic, and we'll come on to that later when we talk about the battery life of the phone. And we think every phone should ship with docks, especially if this is anything to go by. Another point of the design is the loudspeaker. Now, it's a teeny tiny loudspeaker that goes perfectly loud, but it is here very easy to cover with the hand or indeed the thumb. We can just give you a quick example of how easy it is. Open up some music, bump up the volume, and if you see how easy it was to completely mute that with the palm of our hand, which is a bit of a shame. If you're left-handed, it'll be less of an issue, but certainly right-handed, that's a piece of cake to cover up. Not the biggest deal breaker in the world, especially when you have a phone that looks this fantastic. So as far as the design goes, it is big. It sits in the hand quite nicely, but the corner can be a little bit sharp. I'm 6'4", my hands are quite big, so I don't find it too unmanageable. The glass front and back is dragon tail glass. That's 6 times stronger than regular glass. And indeed, it does feel quite delicate when we're holding it, when we're walking in the street. It being such a large phone, we are concerned about dropping it. We haven't heard reports of people dropping it, but watch the Space Check forums to see if that's an issue. It does, however, feel like an absolutely premium experience in the hand. It's so rich. We definitely feel like we just want to keep using this phone all the time. So that's the design of the phone. We absolutely love it. And the next point to talk about is really that beautiful 1080p 5-inch display. If we pull in a little bit closer and refocus on the screen, you should be able to see just how fantastic text looks on that screen. We can actually open up our Kindle app quickly. Bear with us one moment, and you can really gauge. Right, if we open up, say, the Hunger Games, we can see just text is stunning. I used to be a graphic designer. I'm all about my typography. The actual text on here, you can really read serif text. That's when they've got the little accents on the ends, and it doesn't look bad. Most screens will make serif text look really pixelated. This really is a revolution for phones in terms of screen technology. It's all powered along by Sony's Mobile Bravia Engine 2, and that Mobile Bravia Engine 2 ensures you get very rich colors. We can take a look at that. Sony naturally includes some very well optimized images in the gallery, and if we scan through these, we can show you there's one in particular which really stands out. This one, if you just look at the detail on that, how immense is that? It really is bright, vibrant. It's almost radioactive, admittedly, but it really is an example of this Mobile Bravi Engine 2 coming into play, and it works perfectly for movies and pictures. It looks perfectly bright. A lot of people have commented that the screen doesn't have the actual brightness of other phones when you're viewing pure whites, but we really can't see an issue with the brightness of the screen. It looks incredibly good. So that's the display, responsive to the touch, beautiful to look at. Viewing angles aren't the best insofar as with past phones from Sony. Blues tend to get a little bit hyper when viewed at extreme angles, but if you don't care about viewing angles being amazing, you are going to absolutely relish the beauty of this display. So now that was the screen. Now how about the UI, which shows off that gorgeous screen? Well, you've got Android 4.1 Jelly Bean on here, and that packs all the applications in the Google Play Store, and that is loads. You will really have no issues with this, even if you're coming from an iPhone. Sure, you may miss Vine or Infinity Blade, but there'll be other apps to make up for it. We really are impressed with how the Google Play Store's come along. Sony also packs some of their own apps on here. These are going to be hit or miss depending on whether you're bought into Sony's network. So Music Unlimited, for example, and Video Unlimited, so they can actually provide you with movies and music on the fly. If you do, however, have things like Netflix, you can naturally use them as well. We've already spoken about the fact it runs Android, but Sony have customized the skin pretty heavily, and it's refreshed in contrast to how their old skin used to be. It's definitely a lot nicer with regards to the overall aesthetic being cleaner. We can pinch the screen and you can see, gone are the overview of widgets that we had on old Sony phones. You've also got a variable number of home screens now, so you can add and remove more at will. Sony have also updated the themes heavily, so you can also, as you can see, select a theme and completely overhaul the look and feel of your phone. Now we've got the purple phone. It's available in purple, black and white, so we've just chucked on a purple theme on here. Not only has it actually changed the highlights of all the widgets, all the icons up at the top, it's also changed the lock screen. So you can see we've just immediately got a very, very beautiful complementary lock screen. Speaking of the lock screen, you can access music controls from that. You can also access your camera directly from that, and we will come onto the camera later. So the UI of the actual phone itself packs multiple home screens. You've got folders naturally on the home screens. The App Store is also really nice, can be arranged alphabetically or in your own order. If you're arranging it in your own order, you can also create folders within the App Store. In our initial review, we said you couldn't. We correct ourselves. You certainly can. Thank you, commenter, for pointing that out. In addition to the App Store, another real highlight of the phone itself is the fact that Sony include a social networking aggregator. And a lot of people don't like Sony's Timescape, or didn't in the past, but their new Social Life is quite a nice way of aggregating Twitter, Facebook, and I think it can also handle Google Plus as well. So you can see it's much less imposing, much less random 3D transitions, and it's just built in out of the box. Finally, in terms of the user interface, you have a power saving mode. It's called Power Stamina, and what it does is it allows you to whitelist applications. Yes, we do have Tamagotchi I've whitelisted. Don't judge us too harshly. So you can actually whitelist applications that are active in standby. All the other applications get shut down on standby. Well, not shut down, but put to sleep. So they won't drain battery when your phone screen is off. However, naturally, we want to get our WhatsApp messages through, we want to get our tweets and our Facebooks through, as well as we want Spotify to keep streaming music, and we want our Tamagotchi to let us know it's still alive. So that's really the crux of this user interface. It's heavily customized, but it is still Jelly Bean. Therefore, you also have Google Now, which is beautiful. You get access to all your cards. Really just can't complain as far as the UI goes. Now we've done with the UI, it's time to move on to the camera. 13 megapixel Sony Xperia RS sensor. Wow, sounds impressive, and indeed in many ways it is. If we open the camera app, perhaps the most appealing thing about this camera is the user interface. It's been overhauled completely. Sony have a superior auto mode, which is really stunning. So if we pull in close onto something, so we can, let's be controversial and pull an iPhone into frame, we can see that that adapts to macro mode. If, however, we pull in a text document, let's be a little bit fair, we'll pull a Doro instruction manual in, we can see that that should actually adapt to text mode. Yep, it's adapted to document reading. So it actually figures out exactly what kind of thing you're taking a picture of and then makes the most informed decision for you. As far as the quality goes, it's really quite good. Generally, the photos are heavily processed from it. So if we, for example, just quickly take a picture of this lemon juice, it's going to recognize that it is in macro, snap the picture. And as far as detail goes, we can see it's respectable. It's not the best out there, but when we pull up really close, we can see that it is quite heavily processed. If you're printing these out at 13 megapixels, even a heavily processed image is still going to look pretty good. However, if you're an image purist, you are definitely going to see that heavy processing. There's a lot of haloing taking place. There's quite a lot of noise reduction. Therefore, the images don't look very noisy, but you know, it's really depending on what you're after. For most standard consumers who just want to take a good picture, Xperia Auto, processed or not, is going to do just that. If you want to get a little bit more into the image taking, you can HDR it and tweak a whole bunch of settings in the normal video photo taking mode. Video camera is also really impressive because it's the first to pack HDR video. As you can see, that just pulled an insane amount of detail out of the table that really was very hard to see even with the human eye. Switch that off and you just see a standard video. So what HDR does, for anyone who doesn't know, is it just pulls a range of contrast through tonal contrast that you wouldn't normally in a standard video. It takes 3 pictures or 3 videos, higher exposure, lower exposure, middle exposure, and squishes them together. Now moving on to other options, you've got 10 frames second burst mode, which amazing insofar as you can capture fast frames, but it doesn't actually process the pictures. So if we give you an example of how that looks, we've just taken a whole bunch of pictures. We just took 7 pictures in under a second. Amazing. But they're going to be pretty noisy pictures by comparison, as you can see, to the standard shot that we took. And that's because they haven't had time to get fully processed. And they're taken, by the way, at 9 megapixel resolution. If we jump out of burst mode, we can see picture effect mode. This is gorgeous because it actually gives you a preview of what style you're taking the picture of. So that includes nostalgic, miniature, vivid, filter, fisheye, sketch, kaleidoscope, and a Harris shutter. If we take a picture of a Samsung charger, we're going to really mix it up with this one. We can see an on-screen preview, but then if we pull the sketch option out, we can snap that shot. And you can see, for anyone who doesn't want to dabble in Photoshop, dabble in an image editor, you've got a really nice, quick way to take a slightly more creative shot. And the phone also has some really cool elements from Sony. So if, for example, we share that phone to Sony's Notes app, we can actually draw all over it, which is a really nice touch. So just pull that up, make a quick note. Let's get a white pen up. And choose our marker, that's fine, and whoops, so let's place that. We can draw a little message, so if we zoom right in, it's just a lot of fun for someone who wants a lot on their phone out of the box without installing loads of apps from the applications store, from the Google Play Store. Going back into the camera, after picture effects, you've got sweep panorama, scene mode, front-facing camera, and front-facing video. It's all very standard, but one thing to note is the scene modes are really comprehensive. As you can see, you've even got one for food and pets and sports, etc. Really cool. So that's the camera. We really like the quality of the pictures if you're just a standard consumer, but anyone who's a little bit more into their photography will really notice that heavy processing. It may make the pictures look a little bit dull in your eyes. As far as video goes, video quality is also pretty great. Again, it's processed as far as it almost seems like there's optical image stabilization on there because the digital image stabilization on Sony's is so good, and the audio quality from the video recording sounds fantastic. But it is quite noisy if you are taking low light video, though there is naturally that flash to help along with things. Hope that was a little bit more comprehensive for you than our last video, because a lot of you wanted to know about video and camera quality in more detail. Now moving on to the actual specs behind this phone. You've got a 1.5 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor. That's quad core, and that certainly powers everything along well. There is a little bit of weighting here and there. That's unsurprising with a full HD display. Sony's widgets occasionally stutter, but we have to say the majority of user interface experience is very, very smooth. We put some 3D games on here. They look fantastic. We're not going to go into them now because they take too long to load, but trust us, it's a very, very enjoyable experience playing games on here. One thing that is annoying though is that loudspeaker. If you are playing back music or watching games and you're like that, you are blocking the sound completely. So you're going to have to do it like that, which isn't always the most comfortable. Another point of contention is it does get pretty warm around the camera mount. So if you are playing games, you'll really feel that heat on your fingertips, and you'll be insulating that. So not ideal, but it doesn't get unbearable, or at least it didn't in our game playing. And we played games for about 25 minutes to half an hour, and that's Spider-Man, which is relatively intensive. As far as multimedia options on the phone go, we've already covered the fact you've got these fantastic applications from Sony out of the box. Their movies application, for example, we don't actually have any on here. We deleted them, but they'll actually take information. Oh, there you go. Information. If we look up movie trailer information and pull that from Grace Note, which is really, really nice. But movie quality is absolutely superb. So if we drop the volume, you can really see us. We can really see ourselves watching video on this, a whole movie all the way through, really, really comfortably. Sensational pictures, sensational colors. That Bravia Engine 2 making everything look really punchy, vibrant, and poppy. As far as music goes, naturally you've got Sony's Walkman, which is going to be perfect for your MP3s. Spotify, you can download all the apps through the Google Play Store that you know and love. The only point of contention, if you are really into your music, is if you don't have a Bluetooth headset, then the weatherproofing is defunct because of the fact you have to remove the flap for the micro 3.5mm headphone jack. Not micro, just 3.5mm headphone jack. So really that pretty much covers the Sony Xperia Z, except for one last thing, battery life. And battery life is our real point of contention for this phone. It won't last all that long at all. You can see we're at 24% and the day isn't even out here in the UK. We found realistically you're not going to get more than 6 to 7 hours of pretty heavy use on this phone, which is a real shame. And the problem is we really wanted to use this phone all the while we had it. That screen is absolutely gorgeous. Games, beautiful. Camera, really good, really strong. Not the strongest camera, but still, it doesn't mean we don't want to use it all the time. So if you are concerned about battery life, there is no replaceable battery. It is a 2330 milliamp battery, which, you know, with a 1080p display quad-core processor is clearly just not enough. One saving grace is a dock that the phone ships with. That dock means you can just jam it in anywhere, no removing of flaps to charge, connects with the gold ports, and is very, very convenient. We had this at our desk. We'd ideally have one at home as well, but unfortunately battery life standalone not that great, even with power stamina mode. And power stamina mode does make a difference, but as soon as you start whitelisting stuff, that's when it's going to start sapping battery. So the Sony Xperia Z, definitely one of the strongest phones we've ever used in our lives. Save for the battery life, we think it's really, really stunning. Might be a bit big for some, but we found the design of it really, really attractive to look at. Nice, sturdy, beautiful. One Achilles heel. Hope you've enjoyed our more comprehensive review of the Xperia Z and it has appeased people. Oh, actually, we're going to talk about voice quality because we haven't done that yet. It isn't the highest voice quality out there. We've never used a weatherproof phone, weather-resistant phone that has perfect voice quality, and indeed neither does this. It's ever so slight muffling when compared to phones with active noise cancellation. And a second microphone, sorry. So slightly muffled, although from what we heard, the receiver heard our voices perfectly clearly. Still better than most, just not as good as flagships out there. That's been our review. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please fire us a comment below. Let us know if that was too long for you, or if you enjoyed that additional detail we went into for our Sony Xperia Z review. I've been Basil. This has been Know Your Mobile. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe to this channel.